Hello everybody and welcome back to the Endgame series. Hello Chekhov, Mami Rucha. You're funny. So we are going to continue with the Endgame series that we started yesterday. And we are going to continue looking at pawn in games. Yes, another Endgame lesson. I hope that everybody as enthusiastic as you are about Endgames. So let us begin. Yesterday we talked about triangulation, opposition, and corresponding squares, mine squares, etc. Today it's about passed pawns. So first position, clear board, white king d8, pawn a5, black king d6, and pawn h7. These positions are so simple looking yet so tricky. This is a composition by Prokes in 1947. And this one is actually white to play and draw. White to play and draw. So black is in the square of the white pawn, but white king is too far away. So if we try the direct way, let's say a6, black will play king c6 and first stop our pawn, and then he will start pushing this pawn and promote. So this is like the Reti idea, the Reti position, which we looked in the last yesterday. We have to try to combine two different ideas in one. So how about king c8? King c8. Now idea is that if black plays h5, we have a6, h4, a7, and we queen first. So black will play king c6, of course, to stop the pawns. If now a6, king b6, and still are we in the square? Let's check. Let's check if we are still in the square. h5, and we are not. The queen will, the black will queen. So we begin with king c8, king c6, and how about king b8? Now black can't play h5 because of a6, so king b5, king b7 with the idea a6, black takes, and now we are in the zone. So I think this must be the answer. Let's check. Not much ideas here. Yes, king c8 is the first move. King c8, king c6, and a6 is not correct. Oh yeah, a6 is also correct. So there are two solutions for this. We can start with a6 or we can start with king b8. Both are correct with the same idea. And king b5, king b7 is given as the good move. Thanks to the threat of a6, white wins a tempo and gets into the square of h-pawn. Here king c6 would be a big mistake, because now if we try to go after this pawn, black will play h5 and wins. So this is about combining two ideas, like the Reti position. The next one. The next one is quite famous. I think you must have already seen this position. One second. Here board. White king on d7, pawn c7, black king f3, bishop h7, and pawn b7. And this is white to play and draw. Thank you for following. One ink slinger. Any historical precedents for the a6 move? That was a composition by Procris from 1947. Now this is a very famous position again, and it is white to play and draw. So black has the bishop. If white promotes, black will play bishop f5 check. King moves, bishop takes the queen, and when we take, the b pawn will promote. If we start with king e6, black will play king f5. And then again queen will be met with bishop f5 check. This is quite tricky. So again we have to combine two different ideas. This idea and to try to take this pawn. The problem with king d6, if we start first move king d6, then black will play bishop f5. Thank you for following, Benjamin and Adrenaline. So black will play bishop f5. And now if we try to go for the pawn, black just defends with bishop c8. And if we try to go like this, king a7, there is just b5 and black wins. So that is the threat. So now we have to provocate the move b5. So the first move has to be king c8 to try to make this pawn move. b5. b6 is a mistake because just king b7 and then we take the pawn. So black will play b5. And now let me think. King b7 or king d7? King b7, again bishop f5 check. d7. b4. King d6. Now the threat is promotion. Bishop f5. King e5, attacking the bishop. The bishop has to move, let's say c8. And now we go to the pawn like that and stop it. If bishop e6, we can just promote and then take the pawn next move. So what else does black has here? Let's check. Yes, so king c8 is the first move with double exclamation mark. b5. As in Reti's study, white is short 2 tempo, and this looks like very surprising position because the pawn is already so far, king is behind, but we use the two ideas, king d7, b4. Even if black starts with bishop f5, it leads to the same position. b4, king d6, bishop f5, king e5, good move, bishop c8, and king d4. So this was right. I knew this position, so I knew this idea. Now next. Ooh, next is very complicated position with so many pawns. Let's see. There are so many pawns in the next position. King g1, black king h4, white pawns a2, b2, c5, d5, f5, black pawns b4, c7, d7, g7, h7, and g2. So many pawns. 11 pawns on the board. And this is a white to play. And again, I'm looking this endgames from the very famous book Doretsky's Endgame Manual. Now, there are many possibilities here. There are so many possibilities. Okay, so let me think what happens after a4. Just trying to promote the pawn. a4. I will play and see. a4, black will take. Takes maybe king g3 and try to push this pawn. So king g3. And black checkmates us with h2. So this does not work. What if we start by taking this pawn? So we take. Let's say king g4, a4, I'm just going for the straightforward moves. So black controls that. So they say here in the analysis that white must eliminate the g2 pawn. Yeah, because a4 directly is a mistake. Because of the variation we just saw, black plays king g3 and checkmates on h2. So we need to take this g2 pawn, but the first move is f6. If we start with king g2, it's a mistake. King g2, king g5, a4, ba, and the king enters the square of the a pawn and arrives in time to hold 8th rank. Oh, king f6 is good move. So my variation was wrong. Black goes. Thank you for following. And black actually plays king f6, good move, not taking the pawn. a4 and king e7. So this is the way black goes. King f6, king e7. a5 and king d8. Hello, my phone battery low. I will join from laptop. Okay, Ash. Come on, join us. So what happens if we take on f5? Let's see. a4, king e5, maybe c6. c6, d captures c6, a5. And now there is no square for the pawn, right? This is the idea of white. So the correct move, first move is f6. And now it shows us why. Because we have to stop the king from going to that side. Thank you for follow, Christian Soul. So we have to stop black from going to that direction. That is why we start with f6. And this makes a big difference. f6, gf6, king g2. And now we play the same line. King g5, a4, takes, king f5. The 8th rank is not available anymore. Black must use the 5th rank. a4, king e5. And now d6. d6 is the good move. Because if white plays c6, black plays d6. Look here, what happens? Wow. This is so beautiful. Black plays d6 and a5 and takes all the pawns and also covers. So our move c6 was wrong. In fact, we have to go d6. d6, good move. cd, and now c6. This is such a brilliant example. dc6 and followed by a5. And now black king can't reach the a8 square. We stopped all the paths for black. I think this was very beautiful example, especially this d6 and c6. So white actually sacrificed 3 pawns. White sacrificed 3 pawns from the beginning. So first f6, stopping this path, then d6 and c6 in the end. This was very cool. Where did you find this puzzle? We are studying from the very famous Endgame book, Dorothy's Endgame manual. So these are all puzzles from this Dorothy's book. This was quite beautiful. Alright, so next is, they say, is a tragic comedy. So they have this section in this book called Tragic Comedy, which is like positions from real games where players miss something and there is an instructive lesson to learn from these positions. They're tragedy and funny same time. White king d4, queen d3, pawn f2, and black king a2, pawn b2, and a4. Hello Daksh, welcome. King c. No, when only just when I'm setting up the position, it will take us to different board. But when I say okay, then it will be perfect again. Just when I'm setting up the board. Every time when I'm changing the position, like new position, I have to select this different board. Only that time it will be a little out of the scene. Alright, so this is tragic comedy. White is Yeats and black is Marshall. This was played in 1929. So what is happening here? Black is planning to promote b1 soon. White has an extra pawn, so that is good news. And they say that here in the game, white played king c3 and that was a mistake. So now let's see what is the analyze given here. They say first queen c4, king a3, we are attacking the pawn, king a3. And if white plays here queen c2 or queen b5, this looks like we are stopping the queen. Anyway, black just promotes, and when we take the queen, it is stalemate. So this does not work. So the win for white in this line was to start with queen c2. Now we are attacking the pawn. If black plays king a3, we have queen b1. And we know this would be winning. So black plays a3, king c3, king a1, king b3, and black promotes, then takes. We take the a3 pawn, and now white is ahead and makes a new queen. So queen c2 was the winning line for white. One second, let me even just check king a3. I have to check even queen b1 because there is king b3 and a3. So one moment, let me just check this. But we don't have to play queen b1. What else do we have here? king c3, then black will make a new queen, and again we can't take because it's a stalemate. So what's the best move here? I like queen b1, but we have to think about king b3. They have not included this move in the line because I think it must be something very easy. Okay, let me check. So queen b1 is right. So queen b1, king b3, king c5, if a3, king b5. Wow, look at this line, a2, and this is a mate, queen d3. So wow, this is actually a mate because both the pawns are stopping the king to run away. Thank you for following, Thinker Teacher. This is a nice line. I did not see this line. And if black tries to run away, let's say king c3 here instead of a3, then we play king b5, a3, and just king a4, and we take both the pawns. So this was the winning line. But in the game, white played king c3. So Yates played king c3, and this was a mistake because black played b1 queen. Queen takes b1, king takes b1, and white thought that this is winning because the king will go for the pawn, king b4. But now there is a beautiful move, and that is king b2. Black is planning to move the pawns, and white takes, and now we are in the square of this pawn. And black makes a draw. So it was a bad decision to go into this pawn endgame by white. Great explanation. Thank you so much. It's very nice to discuss endgames. So next one, let's go to next one. White king f7, bishops on g7, h7, pawn b2, b3, and h2. Black king e5, bishops on f6, f5, pawns on a6, b5, c5. This is black to play. Endgames are super amazing and surprising. I agree with you. There are so many possibilities even in most simple endgames. Now this position was from the game of two famous players. White is Lasker and black is Tarash, played in 1914. Both the bishops are attacking each other. It is black to move. The pawns are going this way. Yeah, rook endgames are quite tricky too. Hello Blasting King, welcome. Welcome to our endgame series. Now I think we have to take this bishop by force. Isn't it? No, we have to take one of these bishops, in fact. So one of the bishops we have to take. Now they say in the analysis that black wins without trouble. So the easiest way for black was to play this check. Bishop e6, king g6, exchange these bishops, take this pawn. Thank you for following, Jalas Karma. And we keep the same colored bishops, and after h4 to play bishop d1, and this would have been Easy win for black, they say. Thank you for following. Too weak, too slow. Welcome, everybody. So this was the right way to continue. But in the game, thank you for follow, Rishi. Hello, everybody. When will you stream next? Let's see. Since yesterday, we started with Endgame series, and I'm quite excited about it. Thank you for following Crazy Night. Welcome, everybody. So, in the game, Bishop G7 was played. Your channel is going to be very popular. Thank you, but my goal is just to create some high quality chess games and chess content. Not looking for followers. Just want to do this because I love chess so much. Your username is confusing. Ruchess, Russia chess. I know, but also my first name is Rucha. That is why I made this username, Rucha and chess. In the game, black played bishop g7, which is a mistake. White takes the bishop. King capture f5 and king g7. So in this game, Tarash thought that this pawn endgame must be winning for black because we have extra pawn and the pawns on queen side will start moving and the king can stop this h pawn. Black starts moving a5. Thank you, thinker teacher, for that. Hello Mantrala, welcome, good evening to you too. And hello Ash. So a5 was played, h4, and black just have calculated that they will play king g4 and stop this pawn. King g4, but again, just like the previous example, there is a very surprising move, that is king g6. And now the threat is h5, king capture h4, and now white king starts running to the queen side. King g3, king e4, king f2, king d5, king e3, takes, king d3, and this game was a draw in the end. Yeah, Tarash was of course a great player, but just this pawn endgames are so tricky that black thought when he had this position that he will transpose into a winning pawn endgame after exchanging the bishops. White king h7, black king h5, white pawns on h2 g2, black pawn on c7. When will I stream next? Please tell. I'm not sure right now, so I can't tell. Too weak, too slow. Maybe tonight. I'm planning to stream tonight. So yes, that would be my next stream. Right now, in India, it is 5 in the evening. Hello, Chess to Go, welcome. People are slowly waking up, right? And people are waking up and I'm giving them extremely complicated endgames. Not a perfect combination. Hello, Goan, Chess Trio, welcome. So, now here, a white has an extra pawn, but I think this has to be white to play and draw because the pawn will start moving here, c5, and all the way to c1. Time for tea in India, yes. Are you married? No, I'm not married. So let's start with the straightforward move, king g7, but c5, and white is not in time at all. Black will just promote. So what to do here? I'm from India. Welcome, Rishi. Thank you for following, Bear Bully. g4. So let's say g4 and make way for g6. So black has two moves. Of course, first is to take or to play king g5. Let's try both. So let's see first this, king g6, c5, h4 with the idea h5. And if black takes, we get in the square of this pawn. So black will play king g5, and maybe now h4 we can play again to make this square for the king right there. But black will take this pawn, right? Take this pawn. And this black goes c5. So we are missing something in this position. After g4, king g5. There must be something after g4 and king g5. Yeah, it is white to play and draw. We have to try to stop the c7 pawn. Okay, too weak, too slow. Thank you for joining, and see you next time. I love endgames. One blunder and everything finish. You are right. One move can change the result completely. From win to draw to lost. So much happens. So what are we missing actually after g4 and king g5? Okay, 1 minute. Let me try this. g4, king g5, king g7, c5, and now h4 maybe. Black takes, king h4, king with the idea g5 again, king g4, and then we are in the square. And here, if black takes king g4, we have to go king g6 again with the idea h5. Thank you for following, Gillis. With the idea h5, and now we are again in the square. This is nice. Getting a position always confuses me in the endgame. Yes. So I think king g7 must be the move, because if we directly play h4 here, black just takes this pawn, as we saw, and then takes this we saw already. And since there is no square to d6, black will push c5. Let's check the answer. Let's check the answer. Yeah, first move g4 is right. King g5 and king g7. So we solved it. King g5, king g7, c5 and h4. This is the idea. King takes, then king f6. So black played king capture g4, king g6, king h4, and king f5 with a draw. Next one. White king c1, pawns on h2 and f4, black king h4, and pawns on c7, a3. Interestingly, today stream quality seems stable unlike yesterday. Yes, thank you for that. And yesterday just was a bad network at night. Hello Nandini, welcome. My good friend Nandini is here. We are doing endgames, starting with pawn endgames. How often are you training endgame positions? These endgames are very important, but doing them alone can be sometimes very difficult. That's why it's good to do it together. Okay, so this looks quite tricky. Both sides have 2 pawns. Somehow I want to play h3, I don't know why. Because otherwise king g4 will just take the pawns, right? If we play anything else, let's say if we play king b1. Thank you for follow. Allah? Yes, you're right. So I think we have to start with h3. There is no other move anyway. King b1, just black will go here and take the pawn. So we have to think after h3. I'm studying bishop plus 2 pawns versus bishop opposite colors now. Incredibly tricky sometimes, yes. Endgames can be extremely tricky. But the most surprising for me is pawn endgames because there are so less pieces. Like just 2 pawns, 2 or 3 pawns on the board, and so many possibilities. But black will also try to play, I think, c5. But we have king b1, c4, and c3. We just take. So we need to find the best defense for black after h3. Only 3 possibilities: win, lose, or draw. So black has to try to go and take the pawns like this, maybe. King h5. And now we play king b1, king g6, and we have to play h4. And this is nice, king f5. Then we again put him in zugzwang with h5. Or if king h5 with f5. And black's pawns are too far away. So this must be it. This must be it. King h5, then f5. And black can't take the pawns. Yeah, so first move is h3. In the solution, h3, then black played c5, king b1, c4, king a2, thank you for following, Fred, c3, and look at this variation, yes, you're right, Nandi, yes. If we take the pawn, black makes a draw, they say. I did not see this coming. Black makes a draw by the idea king g3. King g3. Now f5 is necessary because king b3, black just takes the pawn. So f5, king f4, f6, king e3, king b3, king d3, f7, and c2. Queens, queens. By postponing the pawn capture, white gets the same position but with his king on a more favorable square. So they both make queens at the same time, and white has a rook's pawn and king is too far away. So let's go back. So this was not so easy as we thought it would be. After c3, the main move of this position is to play king b3 with double exclamation mark. Now black is in zugzwang. If black plays the king, let's say king h5, then we take these pawns easily. So black has to play a2, king capture a2, king g3, trying to use the same idea, f5, king f3. Again, king b3 is a mistake because of king e4. followed by king d3. So king b1. King b1, good move. And after king e4, f6, king d3, white plays king c1 and wins. So the difference here is the king position. So in the previous line, our king stands on a3, and in this line, it stands on a2. And that makes a big difference because white goes to king b1 and c1 and stops this pawn. Very nice. Next one. I see this in my bullet games. You must be a very strong player. King h7. Then pawns on b6. d5, f5, h4, black king f6, knight b8, pawn on c5 with white to play. Where is that puzzle from? All these puzzles are from Dvoretsky's Endgame book. Hello Jane Splendor, welcome, welcome. We have Badur Jababa in the chat. Nice to see you. So many pawns, right? Yes, Dvoretsky's Endgame book. Of course, famous book, this one. This one. So many pawns, as Buddy said just now. So what about h5? Or to play d6, or to play b7? Thank you for following. Betino King g8. So king g8, king f5. Black also has this c pawn and will start moving it soon. Hello Betinero, welcome. I'm thinking h5. h5, king f5, then king g7, king g5, king f6. Something ratty idea that we are looking already. What if king f7, d6 followed by f6? Okay, let me think about this first. What if black just starts moving the pawns? Then we have h6, c3, king g8, c2, h2, and we make a queen. Alright, so after h5, black has to take it. Then king g7, I guess. With the same idea. Have a nice stream. Thank you for joining us. What about a stream with Rucha? By the way, yes, me and Badr were talking and we were thinking, how about we make a sub battle between us? Do you like to see that? We can arrange it someday. Sub battle with Badur. If everybody wants it, then we can arrange it somehow. Alright, so d6, d4. Yeah, h5 also c. If h5, c4, then h6. c3, king g8. c2, h7. That is why h5 black has to take. Black has to take here. And now we have idea h6 or king g7. I'm thinking king g7 or h6. Okay, let's see the analysis. This is too much. Thank you for the donation, James Blunder. Appreciate your support. Thank you for follow. Let's give a shout out to James Blunder. Alright, so thank you for all your support and following. Oh, you are right. As somebody said in the chat, h5 is a mistake because of king f7. You are right. Somebody did suggest it. King f7. As far as I see it, as long as black plays king f7, white cannot queen anything. You are right. You are right. And even though we have 4 pawns, we cannot make any progress. And this is just simple lost because of c4, c3. And white can't do anything. So that is why h5 is a blunder. So white must start with king g8 to avoid king f7. The battle with Badur on board 1 against other streamers. Yes, we are planning to do it soon. Yeah, that is why king g8 first move. Because of this logic, king capture f5. If c4, there is just h5 and black can't stop this pawn. So black plays king f5. And now the idea about Reti, that is king g7, good move. King g4, again the threat is h5, so king g4, king g6. One second. King g6, king h4, and king f5, and they say it's a draw. And they say in this analysis that none of this was actually played in the game. White failed to find this idea and resigned in this position. In the starting position, white thought white is losing and just resigned and missed this idea to play king g8 followed by this king g7. So the next chapter is called as the floating square. Sounds very interesting. So let's see what it is. Clear board. King c5. Thank you for following. Spirit of St. Louis, welcome. King c7, pawns on g6, h5, king g7, pawns on a5 and e5. So let's first understand what are floating squares. There are cases in which the king must do battle with two separated passed pawns. In these cases, a useful rule is the floating square rule. So they have drawn an box like this. And they say if a square whose two corners are occupied by pawns on the same rank reaches the edge of the board, then one of those pawns must queen. If the square does not reach the edge of the board, then the king can hold the pawns. If there are 2 files between the pawns, the king can capture both. If the distance is any greater, he can only prevent their further advance. Okay, we have to try with examples what this explanation means, because it's too difficult to understand this rule without examples. So now they say black will queen here because the square reaches the queening squares, this square. So black plays a4. 1 minute. Let me make it black to play. Yeah, very deep concept. That is why it's good we understand them with positions. So black plays a4, king b4, e4, king a4, and e3, and black promotes one of these pawns. So next they say that let's move this pawn 1 square behind. So let us set up a position where black pawns are 1 square behind. So we move them on a6 and e6. What page is that on? It is on number 28. So same position, we moved one pawn 1 square back. And now let's draw this square. And now they don't reach the final promoting square. And they say then white can hold this. If a5, king b5, e5, and king capture a5. Thank you for following, Anna Harris. So that is why we have to first try to draw a square, and then we can understand if they promote or not. Then next example they have given is pawns like this. Clear board, king on b3, black king on g7, white pawns on h5, g6, black pawns on a5 and d5. And they have drawn a square like this. Oops. Thank you for following. Guilty. My arrows are so bad. Okay. So, the square does not reach the edge of the board and the distance between the pawns is the most unfavorable. 2 files. This means the pawns are lost regardless of who is on the move. So if white to play, white goes king a4, d4, and now of course not take it. We go back to king b3 and we take this pawn and wins both the pawns. Thank you, Leon, for the raid. Appreciate it so much and welcome raiders. How was your stream, Leon? Hope you're having a good day. Welcome everybody. We are having an endgame series starting with pawn endgames. So the next example. So this is the introduction about floating squares, and now they start giving us examples. Where is my board? Thank you for the following. So, clear board, white king. Yeah, everybody is scared about endgames. King b2, Thank you for following Joe and Rishabh. King g8, pawns on f6, h6, black pawns on a4, c4. Thank you for following Sleep, and welcome everybody. Thank you Anjesh for your support and gifting sub to Leon. It's 1 always on 6th rank the pawns promote. So they say let's examine one more substantive case. On the queen side, the square does not reach the edge of the board. So if we draw the square like this, what we studied, it does not reach the promoting square, and white grabs the pawns. King c3, a3, and the correct move here is king c2. So we come back and then we try to go after the other pawn. And black is in zugzwang here because a2 then will be king b2. If black king moves to h8 then f7, if f7 then h7, and black loses this endgame because of zugzwang. On the king side, however, the pawns are already quite far advanced, and that is why white is winning in this position. So next one. a2, king b2, c3, then king capture a2. White king e4, black king f6, pawns on c3, f5, g6, h5, black pawns on g7, e5, c6, c7. Can you play a song? Not right now. I'm so much into Endgames, so I will not accept requests right now, at least in this series stream. Maybe some other time. I think it was a draw last game. By what happened? The black can't take the pawns because the pawns are far advanced for white. After c3, as you said, white goes king a2. King. Okay, I'm out of that position. But if you want, we can arrange it again. If you think it's a draw after this. White to play and win. Will you stream at 10 at night? Yes, I will stream at night. I don't know exact time, but after I have my dinner, I will make a stream today. Let me check the position. 1 second. Yeah, this is right. Okay, Daksh, I will see you at night. Yes, with Kevin, welcome. So, okay, what happens if we start with c4? That is my first move. There is c4 and h6. So let's think about both. What's wrong with c4? Black will play c5, then king d5. Then he just takes the pawn. So that's not right. So we have either this followed by h6 or directly h6. The king can't move because black will take on f5. So the question is h6 directly or first c4, c5, then h6. h6, g6, g7, king e5. 1 second. h6, g6, king g7. Wait, why can't I move this? Why can't I move this? One second, why can't I move king g7? I will set it up again. I will just press OK. You can't move cause... Oh, I forgot to put this move. Okay. That's what I was thinking. But this is not winning for white, of course. Because black will just start pushing the pawn, right? King e6 and black can play king f8 and stop your pawn. I'm sorry for that. It's like I played the move in my head, but not on the board. Okay, so what about h6, g6, and then we go back king f3, h5, king g3. And now what is the square rule that we just learned? Yes, it is white to play and win. So what is the rule? King f3, h5, king g3. And the pawns will be on e5 and h5, so the square will be like this. So it has to be controlled by the king, according to the rule that we learned. So we play h6, takes, king f3, h5, king g3. I don't know, is it? King g3, if e4 we go king f4 and take this pawn somehow. At least that's the rule that we saw. Yeah, h6 is first move. h6, gh6, king f3, h5, king g3. And now we are controlling this pawns. Black plays c5, king h4, e4, and we have to go back king g3 and black resigned. So after learning this idea, this is easy to calculate. Let's see. After h5, king g7, if black just waits, maybe instead of h5, king g7, then you collect the pawns and push yours. So how do we do that? Maybe we can first block this on the c file, and we just have to wait for black to move the pawns, and play king e3. After king f6, we have to play king e4 so that we don't give black the chance to go back again. And then he has to push the pawn sometime. So let's say e3. I think so. Let me check. Just wait and see. King g4. e4, then we know that black will lose the pawns. If king f6, king h5, even go for these pawns. And then f6. Alright, f6 is straightforward move. If I play c4, it's also winning. So this is a winning endgame. Next one. Next one is a tragic comedy. Let's see. I'm always interested in tragic comedies. So this is game between Stolz and Nimzowicz. King e1, black king e5, rook d3, black rook b2, pawns on a4, b5, g3, black pawns on g4, f5, and d4 with white to play. Yeah, tragic comedy. If you know this book, Dobritsky's Endgame manual, then you know that there are sections called tragic comedies. So they say white would have secured the draw by advancing his a pawn and putting the rook behind it. So the correct move was to start with a5, good move, rook b5 and rook a3. Thank you for following, Parth. Welcome. So this was the way to go. And they say this would have secured draw for white. Or even to first start with rook a3, king e4, a5, d3, a6. Let's not analyze this rook endgames now. Just we will see the line given. a6, king e3, rook d3, and a7 would make a draw. Hello Parth, wise reindeer. Welcome. You know Hindi? Of course I know Hindi, I know Marathi. I'm from Maharashtra. So, in the game, white played rook d2. White played rook d2, and this is a blunder. White decides to go into the pawn endgame. Black takes the rook, king d2, and now f4. And we know this pawn rules that these pawns are in the square like that. f4, gf4 check. If white plays a5 here, black can even play king d6, a6 and king c7. So after f4, white took. And now the brilliant move here is king d6, stopping the a and b pawns, king d6. The square of d4 and g4 pawn reaches the edge of the board. That means it's impossible to prevent one of them from queening. a5, g3, a6, king c7, and white is a bit behind. King e2, d3, king d3, g2, king e4, g1 queens, king f5, queen b6. This is what happened in the game. King g5, king d7, f5, king e7, and then white resigned. Thank you for following. So we saw that this was a game between very strong players, but just missed the idea that the pawns can be queened, and especially this move after f4 and king d6 and black queens. Now next one. king b2, queen e4, pawns c2, d3. Thank you for the cheer. Appreciate it so much. Dallas Karma. Pawns f4, h4, black king, f7, queen d5, pawns a7, c6, d4, g6, h7. And where is my pen? And this is black to play. So of course we have to try to understand the endgame after queen e4. Now let's see the analysis for this. So this was the game between Klater and Dorotsky. So Mark Dorotsky was black himself in this game. He played queen capture e4, captures the queen, and a5. And surprisingly, it's sometimes these comments are so high even to understand, and they just say that white resigned, and I don't even know what's happening. It's like when they resign, I start thinking what's really happening here. Was black plays king e3, the king pawn endgame. So he resigned in the view of d3, d3, c4 and a4. That is why they resigned. Or if they go first move king b3, trying to go after the pawns, c5, king c4, and a4, c3, a3. And these pawns are unstoppable. King b3, d3. Hello Akshay, welcome. How are you doing? King e2, black king d4, white pawns b3, f3, h3, black pawns on h4 and g3. Okay, this is white to play and win. Yeah, previous position was quite complicated with so many pawns. So you reply to selective people? No, it's not like that. Sometimes I'm just looking at the board and I miss some of the messages. I'm sorry for that. Okay, so what is happening? If we just start pushing the pawns, b4, king c4, f4, and black will stop both the pawns. So these pawns are not... Let's draw the square. Is this right square? Yeah. So if we start pushing the pawns, let's say b4, black can take both the pawns. So we can't just start pushing the pawns, b4 or f4. So how to win this position? Black king is so well placed right now in the middle of both the pawns. So what if I just pass the move, let's say king e1 or king f1? King f1, king d5. Maybe king f1 puts black in zugzwang, so king d5. Black can still move the king like this, right? King d5 and king d4. Thank you for following. So black can still move king d5 and king d4. But I think these are the only two squares for black, right? Yeah, I think these are the only two squares for black king. If black king goes to c5, let's say, then we can play f4. And now black can't stop from promoting both the pawns. That is why these are the two squares for the black king. Maybe we can wait and maybe try to play after king d5. We have to play king d3 somehow. Thanks for following. Yeah, we have to try it like that. So when black plays king d5, we have to play this move king e3. So we need to get this position what with black to play. So how about king f1, king d5, king e1, king d4, and king e2. We give up the move by triangulation, king d5 and king e3. So we have achieved this, and now the king has to move somewhere, and that would be very decisive. If king goes to e5, we start moving this pawn, and if the both pawns go one square ahead, it will be winning. Yeah, this must be it. If this is the answer, I would be so happy to have found it, really. Alright, let's see. It's so much it gives so much happiness if we find correct answer in endgames. It's like getting maths problems right. And honestly, I'm not good in either of them. So the winning method is not complicated. White should pass the move to his opponent by means of triangulation. Then he will be able to advance his pawns so they can decide the fight without the king's help. Yeah, king f1 is the move. King d3, we missed this move. King g2. So black has in fact 3 squares, not just 2. Black has 3 squares. So king d3 we missed. White goes king g2. Black has to keep moving on these squares. King d4 and he plays king g1. King g1, king d3, king f1, and you see we have reached this position, king e2, and after king d5, king e3, white gets the square, king d6, f4, king d5, and b4. And now we don't need to calculate till the end because we know that these are the square for winning. Yeah, but this is right. Thank you for following, handsome geek. Next one. Oh, next one is about 3 connected pawns. Let's see. King c2, black king g8, white pawns on h6 and f6, black pawns on a4, b4, c4. And this is white to play. Hello everybody, those who are joining right now, we are doing an endgame series starting with pawn endgames. So white to play and win. And they say in the introduction about 3 connected pawns that it is difficult for the king to fight 3 connected passed pawns. It has no chance at all if the enemy has any moves in reserve. If not, then a situation of reciprocal zugzwang could arise. Yes, so now black king can't move here because if black king moves, white will advance one of the pawns. So we need to find a way to stop all these 3 pawns and then we could win. We should have more mods. Right now we have 2 mods, Alakshay and Nandi Chess. Maybe they can make more mods for us. I will leave it up to them to do it. I just trust them entirely. Alright, so let me think about this. We just need to find a position where black is forced to move the king. If first move f7, black will just take it. Black will just take the pawns. King is already on c2, yes. So we need to find the best way for the king. What about, okay, let's try all the moves. Let's try. So what about king b2? King b2, if we play, black will play, I think b3, right? b3. b3. And now if king c3, black has a3. If king a3, black has c3. If we go back, then black will push the pawns more. And this is just winning, I think. Yes, because now a2 check, c2, and then just give up one of these pawns and promote. So I don't like king b2. What about king b1? King b1, the difference is that now if black plays b3, we have king b2 and we have stopped these pawns. So after king b1, if black plays, let's say, c3, now king c2 or king a2. King a2 just c2 and b3 and will be winning. So after c3, let's go king c2. And I think we have made it. Thank you for following. Is it white to move and win? Yes, this is white to move and win. Too weak, too slow. Bye. Okay, thank you for joining. See you next time. So I think king b1 must pay it. I don't see good line for black. After a3, we play king a2. And c3, we just play king b3. This looks easy, right? it's white to move and draw, I think. Thank you for following. There is no way, I guess, in which white can win. But why not king b2 and king b3? We are stopping all the pawns. What if a3? So after king b1, which is our move, let's promote it. a3, then we play king a2. And now what will black do? c3, we have king b3 again. And black can't move either of these pawns. Let's say you play a2, we take it, c2, king b2, b3, king c1. And now black has to move the king, and then we move the pawns. Alright. Yeah, king b1 is correct. So king b1, good move. And just white wins because black does not have good defense for this. Ooh, next is queen versus pawns. Now we have reached queen versus pawns. Which book is this? This one, Doretsky's. Queen versus pawn, knight or center pawn. So we put king on c8, queen on d8, king on c2, black pawn on d2. That is an insane book. Yes, very difficult positions, but quite instructive also. Queen versus pawn. The only cases which have significant practical importance are those elementary endings in which a queen plays against a pawn which has reached the next to last rank. If the pawn is behind, then white generally finds way to win easily. So it is important to understand when pawn is already on the 2nd or the 7th rank. But wait a minute, I think I know this, how to win this. So before I check the analysis, let me try. So there are many ways to do it. We just have to understand the concept, the algorithm. We have to push the king on d1, and every time we push the king to d1, we have to move the king one square ahead. So let's do it. Queen starting with check. Okay, there are random moves. Thank you for following. Real John Gary. Check, here, check, king b2, and we have to play queen d3. King goes to c1, and now we give this check. And whenever we move the king to d1, we have to move our king one square ahead. So this is the formula. Now the move does not matter so much because we just need to go with the pattern. King will try to come out. Again, we have to repeat this same. 1 second. I think queen c2 or queen e5 doesn't matter. Just keep on going with this idea. Check. King moves. Queen d3. It's a long way, but we need to do it like that. And every time king goes to d1, our king moves. Check. Yeah, there are different ways to do it also. I'm just playing this out. Check, and then king moves ahead. And we can just play here queen c3, followed by king d3, and we get this pawn. So this is the pattern about playing against one pawn with the queen. So this is for the pawns which are in the file B, D, E, and G. There are different cases for rook and bishop pawns. So this works if the pawns are on B, D, E, and G files. We can use this idea. The rook pawn and the bishop pawn can lead to draw. we will look at it later. But yes, the general idea is like this. I will just show you quickly. If there is a rook pawn, like and king is far away, let's say. Okay. Even when we play this check, black king goes to the corner. We can't move the king because it's a stalemate. That's why with the rook pawns, it's a draw. And we cannot make any progress with this. We played this. Again, every time we give check, white goes in the corner and we can't make progress. We just need to, again, give more checks. And same with the bishop pawn. So if we have a bishop's pawn, that is C and F files. So let's move them like this. Oh, it flipped the board. Alright, so there is a bishop pawn like this, and every time we give a check and use the same idea, white king goes in the corner like this, and now the threat is queen, and black cannot take the pawn because it's a stalemate. So this does not work for the rooks and the bishop pawns. And when the king is far, if the king is already near, let's say in the zone, then it's a different case, and black can use different ideas with that. But in general, we just need to know this, that it works for all the other cases except rook and bishop's pawn. So next one. White king f8. Thank you for following. And welcome everybody. King f8. Queen d3. Black king a2. Pawns on a5 and b2. Hello. f2 pay respect. Now there are two more pawns in this case. And now why this makes a difference? Let me think about it. Thank you for the raid. Why so serious? Welcome raiders. Appreciate your support. And thank you once again for your raid. Hope you had a great stream. And welcome everybody. We are doing an endgame series starting with yesterday. Thank you for all the follows. I appreciate your support very much. I want to give a shout out. Can anybody type the username? I don't know how many Ys there are in Why So Serious. Just please somebody write me username so I can give a shout out. Thank you for all the following. Yes. And thank you once again. Alright, so here we have the knight's pawn, but we have two extra pawns. And why is this not winning? Thank you for follow, Sid, and welcome everybody. Now the difference is that there are two more pawns here. That is why we cannot give check on the A file. That is the difference. So the king cannot be driven to b1 since white is unable to check on the A file. The most white can achieve is a queen endgame with an extra rook pawn with queen a5, they say. So that's the most white can do. Take this and play this queen endgame. with an extra pawn, but still it is a draw because the king is also far away. So let's say white tries queen c2. Thank you, Hobbit Gamer. Queen c2, king a1, king e7. And you see now we can't check because of the pawns here. So b1 queen, takes, king d6, king c2, king c5, king d3, and this leads to a draw. Because now black takes their position and we cannot promote this pawn. a5, then king c7, king b8, and even if this just leads to stalemate. So this does not work like that. Now next we are going to look at bishop's pawn, but this time the king is near. King is near the zone. King d5, king b2, queen a4, and black pawn on c2. Now we have a bishop's pawn, but the king is in the zone, so we have to try to use it, and we can try to win this position. So let's see. Again, when we try giving checks, black will go in the corner, and we can't take the pawn with the queen. So what to do here? Thank you for all the following, Anoop. Welcome, everybody. Good to have you all here, especially when we are doing endgames, because studying endgames alone can be very difficult. Hi from Kathmandu, greetings to you from India. So how to use this idea that the king is near the pawn? Which part of India? I'm from Maharashtra. Thank you for following Magical Dreams. Thank you, George M. So, anybody got any ideas how to win this? How to use that the king is on d5? Thank you. Report from Iron Mountain. This should be pretty straightforward win. So how do we go with it? Keep checking black king. Yes, we can do that, queen b4, but black goes to a1 every time. Here she is, my favorite chess streamer. Thank you, Paul, and welcome. So queen b4, king goes to a1, queen c3, queen b1, queen b3, king a1. Thank you, Medic says. King d4, then queens. Thank you, Blitz Breed. Okay, so Jorham writes queen b4, king a1, queen e1, king b2, queen f2, king b1, king c4, queens, and king b3. This looks interesting, yeah. Try to go to king c4 and king b3. So we need to bring the king on this side. So queen b4, let's say. King can't go to c1, we just improve our king. So king a2 or king a1, we give check. And queen e2, right? And then try to bring the king like that. And king b3 with no checks on the king. Yes, so the answer is queen b4, king a2. Yeah, we just need to see the ideas, not the moves in this one. Queen c3. Thank you, Lance Henriksen. Welcome. King b1, queen b3, king a1. So we know this already. And white just goes this side. Thank you, I am crab. King b1, queen, 1 second. King b1, queen d3, king b2. Yeah, queen e2. We need to go this side. And king b1 is king c4, queens, and king b3. So this is how white wins. This is how white wins. But there is a twist to this position. There is a twist to this position that instead of king b1, black plays king a1. And this is in fact given as a draw. So this was missed in the original analysis. And black plays king a1. And the win is not possible, they say, after king a1. Yes, plot twist to this. Really, there is no way to improve this position because queen c2 is a stalemate and we can try it, but now king c4 will be met with check, and king b3 there is queen b1 check, and then queen will move away. Are you sure? That's what is given in this analysis, that after king a1 black is able to draw. Now the same position. 1 moment. The win is possible only if the white king stands so close that it can help the white queen mate the enemy king. Thank you for following. Now next position. If the white king was 1 square closer, it would be win. Yes. Yes, but we have to see this move king a1 even after queen e2. And that is the analysis of this. How about queen a3 and king d3? Okay, queen a3, king will be on b1. Then king d3, c1 will queen. And how to win after that? Yeah, even I thought that this was winning, but no, that's not the case after seeing the analysis from this one. There's just not enough time to bring the king near the pawn. Now they say that same position if we move the black king to d2. So the same position, we move the black king from b2 to d2. And now in order to reach its stalemate, it will have to cross the c1 square, giving white the tempo he needs to win. So if black wants to go to a1, he will want to go to c1 and then to a1, and it will take time. So this is winning for white because the king stands on the other side. King e2, queen c3, king d1, queen d3, king c1, king c4, and now king is 1 square ahead. King b2, queen d2, king b1, and king b3. So when we have a position like this, where we have just one pawn, we have to always try to go to the corner and not stay on the other side with the bishop's pawn. All right. white king b5, black king b1, queen a3, and black pawn a2. And this time it is really winning. White to play and win. No plot twist this time. So we have rook's pawn, but the king is close this time. So every time we give check on b3, he will go to a1, and it will be a stalemate pattern. King b4 will be met with a1 queen. Queen d2, king on b3, yes. Thank you for follow, GP. So we need to get the queen on this side. So we can start with either queen b3 or d3. Let's start with queen b3 check, king a1, queen d1 check, king b2, queen check here, king b1, and now we can improve the king, queens and king b3. And now there is no check to this king, and next move we are planning to play queen d1 or e1 or c2. Here, if black plays king a1, we just improve the king, and if black plays king b3, we have this very nice move, queen d4. And next move, we play queen a1 and block the pawn. Yes, you are right. This is the answer. Queen b3, king a1, queen d1. So queen b3, king a1, queen d1, king b2, queen d2. And king b4, a1, queen. King b3 is winning. So they say now, let's move the king to e4 in the starting position. So it's the same position. We move this white king to e4. Thank you for the follow. We just move this king to e4. And now what happens? They ask the question. Now what do you think happens? Just a minute. Same idea, but the king must land on d3 and the mate on c2. So after king b1, so how do we begin? Queen b3, king a1, queen c3, king b1, and king d3. Yeah, you're right. This looks like the answer. So we start with queen b3. King a1 is the move because the pawn is under attack. Thank you for following my Raj. And then queen c3, king b1, we go king d3, a1 queens, and queen c2 is mate. Well done. That has to be the answer. Yes. Okay, now is pawn races. Pawn races is next. King on a5. Clear board. White king a5. Black king h5. Pawns on a2, b2. Pawns on h7, f7. And this is a white to play. So now let's read the introduction. Pawn races. Let's examine the sort of situation where both players advance simultaneously and queen at the same times or almost same time. So here are the possible outcomes that can be seen. Thank you for follow. So the first outcome is one rook's pawn prevents the other queen's pawn from queening. Yes, so it can be like we queen first and then stop him from queening. So this is first outcome that can be seen. Then the second is the pawn queens with a check. So if we promote with a check, then it is advantage for us. Then the third is we get a queen versus a pawn endgame. So we queen first and then we have to play an endgame where opponent has pawn on the 7th rank. Or if the both queens, then the fourth outcome is one queen is lost to a skewer check along file or diagonal. So both the queens same time, but we can check and then get the other queen. The fifth outcome is there can be mate immediately. Sixth is the queens are exchanged, after which we once again have a pawn endgame. So we both side make queens and they will get exchanged and again a new pawn endgame. And the last one is we get a queen endgame for queen for both sides. So these are the possible outcomes from such endgames and we just need to find which is favorable. This is white to play. This is a composition by G. Walker in 1841. Queen b5, then a8 queen, preventing h1. Yes, you are right, Codex. You are right. This is nice. And also simple to calculate once we see the idea. Yeah. So now we start with the b pawn because the king stands on the a file. So b4, f5, b5, f4. This is long variation but easier to calculate because straightforward moves. Queens. And now we force this exchange of queens. Black takes. The king moves, let's say to g5. And then we start pushing the second pawn and we will queen first and stop this pawn. And even if the king was, let's say, on g3, next move we play queen h1 and just stop it. So this was not possible. 1 second. Yeah, the best black can do is play king to g4. And then again the same idea. King goes to g3, and we are just in time to play queen h1, and this is winning. Alright, so next one in pawn races. Clear board, white king on e6, pawn on f2 and h2, black king h3, and black pawn on f3. So white to play. And they ask the question, what will happen? This is white to play. What is the result expected from this endgame? Thank you for following, Savage. Welcome. White wins. How does white win? Black wins. This is very critical. 3 results are possible in this position. Quite possible. I was looking at the board the other way. Alright, so pawns are going here. Black pawn goes here. It also takes me a minute or two to understand where the pawns are going. You voted draw. Yes, this is white to move. This is white to move. And they ask the question, what will happen? White wins, draws, or black wins? Draw. So let's see. If we try to go for this pawn, let's say king f5 or king e5. King e5. Of course, black should not take here because this is winning. And we reach this position where black has to give up this pawn. So that is why after king e5, black will try to go to g2 and take this pawn. Now h4 takes h5. And see what happens now. Queen a1 check. Queen a1 check. That is why what to do in the beginning. So if we put on e5, we run into this skewer. If we put on f5, we run with a check in the beginning. Maybe king d5 to avoid both of these ideas. Yeah, now looks like it is king d5. Because king e5 and king f5 both run into skewer or check. So king d5. Again, black cannot take because king e4, king g2 and king e3. So king g2, h4 takes, and now there is no way to win our queen. Yes, the only move to draw in this position is to play king d5. Other moves are losing for white. Yeah, this is the draw. This is a draw. But we need to understand the difference between the king moves. So next is a composition by Grigoriev in 1928. I think some of you might have seen this because this is quite a famous composition. And also the most tricky one. Maybe some of you might have seen this before. This is a white to play and win. King d4, b5. g4, blocking black's king from chasing the pawn. But I don't think black will try to chase the pawn. Black will just try to concentrate about pushing this pawn. White promotes, black promotes, then queen a8. But b1 queen is a check to our king. Why can't he chase white's pawn if white doesn't block him? Let me think about it. So if we just try, he can run and try to chase him. But it's too far, isn't it? The king is too far for that. Chase it. Grab b1 quickly first. Thank you for following, Joey. Welcome. Yeah, king is too far. So, white will promote. Okay, but let me see what's happening directly. Let's first check this line. g4, b5. I'm just trying to think what happens here. Can't we just stop with king c2? Can't we just stop with king c2? What's the problem in this? Oh, I'm sorry. Just a moment. Just a moment. I'm very sorry. I put it in a wrong way. Pawn is on f2. King d3, pawn f2, king a4, and b6. I'm very sorry for that. The pawn is on f2. That's what I was thinking. Why can't we just start moving the pawn? And now you are right. The king is in the zone now. Yeah, that must be winning. g4 and just win. But now the pawn is on f2. And now black will try to stop us like that. Yeah, now this is the trouble. We won't pardon you. So now if we start with f4, black plays king b5. You can create a study perhaps and have all the boards ready for the stream. It's alright. I think everybody here is quite nice to me if I do it here with you all. And will also forgive me if I make such mistakes. King d4, black blocking the king, b5. Let's try king d4. Oof. Why can't I move? I just can't move. Let me refresh this. Let me refresh. No, this is white to move. I will just try to refresh. Where did my leech's board go? Oh, 1 second. Where did my leech's board go? Can you check if this any issue with leeches, or is it just for me? Can you check, please? Or is it some problem for me, or just... Somehow I can't reach leeches. Thank you for all the following.